WSAV presents the Storm Team 3 Stormwatch Advisory.
All right, good evening. I'm Chief Meteorologist Kris Allred live in the Storm Team 3 Weather Center. Thank you for spending your Friday evening with us. I'm with Meteorologist Scott Roberts, where we have tag team coverage of the latest as we track the tropics. So let's talk about the last 24 hours because a lot has happened. At 11 o'clock last night, we had an update on what was Tropical Storm Isaias. And then by about 47 minutes later, it had increased the winds up to 80 miles per hour, and it became a hurricane, the second one of the season. Well, the storm system tonight is showing that it is getting more organized. It's showing better convection as the storm system is approaching the central Bahamas. Still a Category 1 hurricane tonight. The latest forecast track is out. So hurricane hunters, this is the big deal, the big issue of what we need with their data as they fly in and out of the storm system. They take several flights, they send that information back to the National Hurricane Center, and that's how we have a better idea of what the storm system not only is doing now, but what it could do in the next several hours and days. So this is what's happening at this moment. They are in the middle of going to the storm system, and we will have the latest forecast track that will come out at 11 o'clock tonight. But this is what you need to know here in the Coastal Empire and Low Country. This is what's happened today. We got the latest track at 5 o'clock this evening, and the track has shifted a little bit to the west. That's good and not so good in some ways for us in the Coastal Empire and Low Country. One way that it is better for us is that with this shift, it does have the storm system a little bit weaker as it approaches our area. It did have it approaching as a hurricane, but now it looks like it could be a strong tropical storm. The time frame, when is this going to happen for us? Well, it's going to happen as early as late Sunday and then mainly on Monday. That's when we could feel some of the impacts of the latest storm. So with the forecast track, Category 1 hurricane, it has maximum sustained winds of 75 miles per hour, so it's barely at hurricane strength, moving to the northwest at 15. Now it was moving at about 20 miles per hour, so it has slowed down a little bit. On this track, it has the storms approaching Florida as a Category 1 hurricane, and some models even have the storm system making landfall. It could definitely make a landfall, or it could stay right along the coast, hugging the coastline. As it moves from Florida up to Georgia, that's when it gets downgraded to a tropical storm. So on Sunday evening, it still has winds of 75 miles per hour. Look at Monday morning down to 70. And then by Monday evening, it still has maximum sustained winds of 70 miles per hour. And if you look at the cone of uncertainty, which is the entire area that's shaded in red, you see where Savannah is? So more of our area, more of the Coastal Empire Low Country is now back in the cone of uncertainty, meaning that we do have a better chance right now that we could see some of the impacts of this latest storm. For this reason, that's why we've had hurricane watches in effect, tropical storm warning and watches in effect all up and down the coast of Florida, because we do know that now the storm system is going to be closer there. And just offshore, just off the coast of Georgia, right on the southern edge there, a tropical storm watch has been issued. That's just out over the water. So right now, we do not have any tropical storm watches or tropical storm warnings in effect. And if we do get added to the list, then we'll let you know. So taking this all into account, and we're going to go over what the weather models are saying and what we could see, but taken away from this in a nutshell is that we could see some gusty winds, definitely, as the storm comes up, especially along the coast. So be prepared for that. Winds could be tropical storm force winds. That's anything stronger than 39 miles per hour. And just before you're like, okay, that's not a big deal, Kris. And you know what? A 40 mile per hour wind gust really isn't that much of a big deal. The problem is if you were going to see it hour after hour, that can definitely lead to some downed trees and power outages, which is a pain. Another thing is that we will have a better chance of rain on Sunday and especially Monday. Some of us need the rain showers, so that's okay too. And the coastal effects, this is what's an issue. Rough surf, it's already starting to get rough out on our public beaches. Tybee has already shut down public beaches on Sunday and Monday. There is a high risk of rip current, so if you were planning to go to the beach this weekend, be very careful. I would only get in the water just to cool off, very low, shallow water. But if you get in the water, make sure that you do have a lifeguard that's present just in case. Coastal flooding. We flood even when we have high tide. So there's a full moon on high tide on Monday. So that is going to be a greater risk as well. And then beach erosion will be a possibility too as the storm is, going up the coast. So now I'm going to toss it over to meteorologist Scott Roberts, who has more on the different weather models, what they're seeing, and also we're going to talk about the chance of those tropical storm force winds and how close it's going to move in. All right, Scott?
Yeah, Chris, it's definitely going to be about the duration of winds that would be a concern for us around the coastal empire and low country, the closest to the coast where you'd be located, where we would have those best chances. But over the coming days, we have been getting a better idea of what the system is doing because it has become better organized. On our water vapor imagery, you can see we've had a decent amount of convection. There's some dry air on the west side of this, which will really inhibit it from becoming really strong, exploding into a very strong tropical system, but it is something that we are going to be watching over the next couple of days. And as it has crossed over the islands of the island of Hispaniola and now making its way through the Turks and Caicos and Bahamas, that center of circulation over the past several days has become very well defined, so the models are having a much better idea of picking up on the system and where it could potentially go as it interacts with other features in the atmosphere. We do have an area of high pressure, the Bermuda High, which is usually over the western Atlantic, and that's going to be helping to lift it into our direction. There's also a weak trough that's going to be moving in from the west, which will help to bring in extra moisture, so that's why we could have some enhanced rain chances. But the European model is one of them that we look at. It's a global computer model that takes a lot of data, upper air data from aircraft, including the hurricane hunters, and this is usually one of the more reliable models when it comes to tropical forecasting as far as where that center of circulation is. This has been indicating through the day today that we could see it coming on shore of the Florida Peninsula, which for us, this would mean a much weaker storm system, but it also means a more western track. A lot of the moisture is on the eastern side of it. This timestamp 1 o'clock Monday morning has in central Florida. I think it's going to be a little bit further east than that, but either way, it is going to be interacting with the Florida Peninsula and then coming in our direction as we head into Monday evening with the possibility of some of those winds and rains coming in onshore. And because of that, interaction with land, it is going to be a weaker storm coming in our direction, but we will be possibly dealing with the winds right along the coast for a longer period of time. On this map, we are looking at the wind field of the hurricane Isaias. The yellow is the tropical storm force. This has been extending out about 200 miles from the center, and as it moves toward Florida, it will begin to contract a little bit, and with that, you could see those winds coming in onshore of the coastal empire and then the low country. This is extending now into Monday evening, but either way, closer to the coast you are, we will have that better chance of having some of those winds in excess of 40 miles per hour, at least wind gusts. Elsewhere in the tropics, we're watching a couple of other things. We are getting closer to the peak of hurricane season, which of course is in September. We were watching this system moving off the coast of Africa yesterday. It is now tropical depression number 10. No threat to the United States, and in fact, not much of a threat even for the Cape Verde Islands. Forecast path takes it to the north and eventually to the west, and actually weakening it over the next couple days. It could briefly become Tropical Storm Josephine as we head through the day tomorrow, but really not a threat at this time. We'll have to see where the moisture would go beyond this, but in the central Atlantic, we have our next system that is possibly going to be organizing. This area of broad low pressure will be drifting more to the west and then to the north, a 30% chance of that developing over the next 5 days. So no threat from this system as far as anything developing anytime soon, but of course we will be watching that pretty carefully like everything else we have in all hurricane season, and certainly watching for those threats in the coastal empire and low country for us over the next several days. But our main concern is on the map just off the coast of the southeast, off the coast of Florida right now, or getting close to it.
That's right. And you know, the next storm system will be Josephine. And we won't have to practice how to say Isaias over and over and over again. So we have a couple questions that are coming in. The first one wants to know, are we going to see floods like we did with Hurricane Irma? And the answer is no. We're not expecting that. If anything, this is going to be a storm system that will bring beneficial rain showers for most of us. Was looking at one weather model that was predicting a couple of isolated spots. If we do get caught in that tropical air mass, you could see between 2 and 4 inches of rain for isolated spots. But a lot of us will just get some rain that we need, like a normal summer afternoon shower or storm.
Right, and that's the scenario that we are looking at right now. We don't expect there to be any major changes with this as we go into the next couple of days. Yeah, that forecast cone could still wobble a little bit one way or the other, but I think either way we are going to be looking at some minor effects along the coast if it takes more of that eastern trek. We're not looking at a Georgia landfall. We're not looking at a low country landfall with this. So that just means we need to be aware and certainly be watching out for the communities right along the coast in this type of situation.
Yeah, so we're not expecting this to be anything like what we saw with Matthew or Irma. But one thing with the coastal flooding, and when we talk about that, is that during high tide, we already see elevated tides anyway when there's a full moon, and the full moon happens to be this Monday. So you have the full moon, and depending on what the wind direction will be, because we don't know exactly where the storm is going to be lined up at that point. So that's something that we will have to talk about once we get to that area.
So likely probably in a broad sense, we might have those elevated tides in the first part of Monday as we have a more onshore flow, and then as that center of circulation gets to our latitude and further north, we'll have an offshore flow, so that would help alleviate any of those issues.
Yeah, so you can see more salt water, on your property. Some other areas that tend to get water over it happens to be Highway 80 going to Tybee, but Tybee also just redid their road to where they elevated it anywhere from 6 to 10 inches, and we haven't had any reports of flooding since then, so that's a good thing. Another question is, let's see, with the number of storms we have seen in the past 2 months, how likely are we going to see us get into the Greek alphabet? I don't even want to think about that right now.
Yeah, the last time that happened was 2005, and a lot of the records that we are breaking this season, as far as when the first, C storm, D storm, etc., has been happening, the records that we're breaking were set back in 2005, which was the most active hurricane season on record in the Atlantic Basin. So certainly something that a lot of people aren't going to forget anytime soon. I hope we don't get there. One thing that's a good sign for what we have been seeing, most of the systems have been pretty strong. We've just now had even though we're at the I name now, we've only had 2 hurricanes so far. Of course, it takes one for it to be a bad season for someone, but everything else has been pretty weak. Even the first one, Arthur, just forming off the coast of South Carolina, a matter of minutes, then making landfall.
Yeah, it's been moving pretty fast, but we're not even into the peak of hurricane season yet. But there have been seasons where it's really active and then all of a sudden it gets really quiet. And so we'll see if we go through any phases. But that's something that I don't want to get there. Okay, let's see. Another question is maximum wind gust. And right now, for what we're looking at, again, just to remind everybody, keep in perspective, we're going to get more updates, so this forecast is going to change. But right now, it looks like the best chance to see anything stronger than 39 miles per hour would be our coastal areas like Tybee or Hilton Head. With the track shifting a little bit more to the west, that means that yes, we more of us stand a chance of seeing some of those gusty winds at about 40 miles per hour. But we'll have a better idea at 11 o'clock just how far inland that could go.
We'll have a better idea tonight at 11, and then certainly as we head through the day tomorrow, as it gets a little bit closer to Florida, we'll have an idea of what it's going to do along the coast. That's going to be the determining factor of this, what it does along the coast of Florida. If it makes landfall, it's going to be a weaker system, and possibly we could have more of that wind effect or wind influence from it. But if it stays a little stronger and doesn't interact with the coast of Florida, it then would likely stay a little bit further out to sea away from us, reducing those effects. And if we do have anything, a lot fewer of us will see those strong winds.
And just looking at the models that I looked at earlier, it really, the only areas that it had shaded where you could see tropical storm force winds were islands. So that's what we saw today. Then we'll see what we see later tonight. Let's see. Okay, someone wants to know what we could see in Statesboro, and that's a good question because Statesboro, you are farther inland. For right now, this is looking to be mainly a coastal storm system. With that being said, in Statesboro, I think what I would say at this moment, you have a higher chance of seeing some rain showers. And you may notice that the winds are a little breezier than what they normally are.
Yeah, and you'll have a northeasterly to northerly breeze throughout the day, then eventually switching more to the west as the system pulls away from us. Once it starts to pull away from us, it's going to accelerate as it goes up to the east coast of the United States toward the Outer Banks, and then eventually up into say New England, staying off the coast. So by say like Tuesday into Wednesday, this is going to be up into the Canadian Maritime provinces and basically dissipating at that point. So it's going to be slow to get here, relatively speaking, for a tropical system, and then it's going to be quick to get out of here as it accelerates.
Next question, and I think we answered most of this. So Janice, if you want to watch with the video, but Brunswick, St. Simons Island, that's mainly the area that we're watching where you could have more of the impacts because you're right along the coast. So that would be not only a higher chance of rain, but the possibility of tropical storm force winds, or at least wind gust. And you're going to have to be careful, for the coast, depending on where you live. If you live right at the beach, like at Tybee or something, then yeah, you're going to notice that it's rough surf, higher risk of rip currents. They're already saying, don't get in the water, those types of issues. And there could be some beach erosion because we do have not only our tides, but we have the full moon on Monday as well. And it's going to be a little rough out there. The winds will be gusty.
Yeah, not a beach day, not a boating day.
Not a boating day. All right, and okay, last question. When are we going to see the worst of it? All right, so as it comes up from the south, so our most southern Georgia counties are going to see it first. So that could start, some of the symptoms, some of the impacts could start as early as later on Sunday. Monday is going to be the main time frame of when we see this active weather, and then it's going to pull away Monday night and Tuesday. So with you being in, let's see, in Beaufort, you'll be the last one of our area to see it. So that's going to be mainly later Monday in that time frame.
Yeah, and then by Tuesday morning,
should be predominantly gone.
Should be pretty
unless
much out
it slows down. Unless it slows down. And
that's something that we'll be watching out for over the weekend. We get lots of updates several times a day. We get updated hurricane tracks 11 a.m. and 5 p.m. Well, a.m. and p.m. at 11 and 5. So around the clock we get those updates. So 4 times a day for that, 8 times a day for the actual advisories from the system as far as the intensity of it and the location of it.
Okay. So again, we will get the latest forecast track at 11 o'clock tonight. So if you want to stay with me, it's Friday night, I will have the latest track at 11 o'clock. And Kyle and Alyssa will be here tomorrow morning with the latest information too. And we're going to continue to do these updates on WSCV.com and on social media. So that's where you can post your questions. And one other way to stay informed.
One more thing before we go is the app. Let's take a look at that. The WSCV Storm Team 3 weather app is a great tool for getting your forecast on a normal day when we have beautiful weather, and it's also a great tool when there's severe weather. Here's how the app looks when you open it up on your iPhone or iPad or your Android device too. You just scroll over to where we need to see our Titan radar, and there it is, Fast Fit Titan radar. We can click on that and see what's going on as far as the rain, but we can also zoom out and take a look at the tropics and the tropical path and even the statistics from the system. That's just another layer. We have this little button in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen with overlays, and just click on tropical tracks, and there is the latest from Hurricane Isaias, and we can tap on it, and right there, a Category 1 storm with 75-mile-per-hour sustained winds. So you get those updates as they come out from the Hurricane Center, and you can see that path. And you can also see by zooming in, well, I guess it pops away if you zoom in too close, but either way, you can see that we are included in that forecast cone. Sometimes I guess the internet could be a little slow and kind of tricky on things, but you can download that. It's available in the Apple App Store and the Android Google Play Store. I learned that yesterday from our director, Bobby. That's what it's called on the Android.
And also on the app, we have the latest forecast videos. So if you miss us at any news time, it will be there. So, because sometimes we like the explanation different ways, right? Okay, well, y'all, thank you so much. And thank you for spending your Friday evening with us and for your questions. And just stay informed this weekend. Have a great weekend. And we are here for you. And we'll have the latest information as you need it.
Keep it here for the best coverage.